Love you, Linda. Love you.
The courthouse the other day in the hallway, you're singing "Oh Happy Day."
One word prayer. Justice, where are you?
Well, Justice, I am somewhere near. I think it's the pilot.
Well, don't tell them. Don't tell them
know.
because it could be. No,
Could be
don't say it because it could be a Justice Served TV. Where are you episode? I was going to say, don't say it.
The problem is, I don't know if I could give enough cues and clues to have anybody answer it. I'm just off the freeway. How about that? I'm just off the freeway.
And that's Michael Bryant. And this is the Justice Served TV mobile edition.
That's right. The mobile studio is in play. We have, even though it's pouring rain, and but it's really kind of a lovely spot I found. There's a lake right over here.
Yeah, it's
nice.
Kind of a lovely car for a mobile studio. And of course, we have to go right off the bat. Madeira Beach. Are you back in Florida, Madeira Beach? Yes. So anxious to know about the
NBC,
trial.
are you crazy? Thank you so much.
Has definitely not been served in the Boston, Mass area. Yeah, and after it was interesting. I'll just tell you because Michael's going to go into it. But after I appeared on a show today, we'll talk about it later on, and it was like 3-1. The three are very, very respectful. The host of the show is extremely respectful, and another person was extremely respectful. But everything I said to what's his name?
DePetro?
Yeah, everything he disagreed with, of course. Okay.
So let's tell people what that's all about. It's a Fox Nation show you just did a few hours ago after we did
Paul Morrow.
Yeah, Paul Morrow, who is very good. He's
excellent, very respectful. The show is great, very prepared. The producers are wonderful. They actually give you the rundown with the buckets and all that stuff for you.
Oh,
so
good.
You prepares. Very respectful and a very good discussion. A very, very good discussion with him and also another attorney who is the head of the Palm Beach Bar Association and all. But I felt like I was the only one saying, the thing you've always said that once you do a defense, people think you have to prove it. I got that impression that, the burden, the shifting burden, like, well, they can't prove that all these people are involved in a conspiracy. The shifting burden is real. And we have to say that because here on Justice Served TV, we tell you what we think, and we tell you the truth. And that's good. That's a problem that the defense may have. But that's my view of being on the show. But Paul Morrow, a great show, terrific. If we have different views, very, very respectful. And we have some of the same views and some different. So if you're a member of Fox Nation, go take a look at it. Let me know what you think. I want to know what you think. Seriously. Okay.
Yeah, no, I'm looking forward to watching it. I was in the federal court at the time that was running, so I didn't catch it, but I'm sure you did a great job. I'm a little surprised that there would be, I don't know, guests that so easily side with the prosecution, especially if they're attorneys. Now, DePetro, I don't know what he is. Is he just
a journalist, isn't he?
I
don't know if he's a lawyer.
I don't mean just a journalist. I mean,
and the other guest was a lawyer, and she was very good. She was actually very good. She was terrific. But the worry is this whole idea that you've taken on the burden shifting, or my view that sometimes Occam's razor could lead you to a conviction on the second count.
Yeah,
so you have to look at it and let me know what you think. We think that I made the point, and at one point Paul Morrow said that was a very good 1 minute summation you just did for the defense. Because it's about the burden of proof here.
Of course, and that's what we learned from the first jury, and we've continually pointed it out here. The burden is on the prosecution. The defense doesn't have to prove, no matter what crazy scheme they may be suggesting happened, and it's crazy, it's not on them to prove it, and so it is a very dangerous situation. It's unusual where there's more evidence of something other than the prosecution's case. That's just weird. And unless the jury stays focused, and that's what the defense has to do, focus them, then they can drift off and start wondering about the bits and pieces of the defense argument, not a case they have to prove, but an argument. But what about this? How about this? How could so many people, stay on the same storyline and not? So what? They don't have to. It doesn't matter.
Right.
Right. So anyway, that's their burden. That's their burden to prove there's no burden. Does that make sense?
That's the burden to prove there's no burden.
Yes.
So yes, you are pretty cool. Now, you know what I'm interested in? We had our youngest member yesterday who was being rushed to the to get some medical treatment because she had fell. Does anyone see her grandpa in the chat today? I don't see it. We'll have to try to reach out. I don't see them in the chat. Okay. So just to keep an eye out if you could. So, all right. And now with that downer. Okay.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, and best of luck to them. I'm trying to remember the screen name. It'll come to me. But yeah, we wish them the best, and hopefully things that turned out well. There was a health emergency they had to deal with. So
right. Nick Starrow. This is really interesting. SEK $50 donation. 50 SEK. I just rewatched a direct exam of Proctor. I forgot he was a certified Celebrate software programmer. What can Celebrate programmer do? Now, let me just tell you, tomorrow at 6 p.m., we're going to be running a
premiere
where we actually have relooked at the cross-examination of the real foil, Michael Proctor, in this case.
Thank you, Sui Generous. That disappeared fast. Where'd it go? Where'd that go?
Okay, that's Nick Starrow. Nick is a big supporter of us. Also, Sui Generous, Verlinda, Michael Judd.
Thank you so much.
Keep on. Southwest Gulf Coast of Florida, Boca Raton, Linda. Got a counter Madeira Beach. Appreciate it. You guys, I use guys generically, you know that. Okay, so I interrupted you, Michael, because I wanted you to get set, get comfortable, and tell us about your day. What's going on?
Skyhopper, that was it. I saw it just zoom by. Yeah. Skyhopper was the screen name of the folks who were having the health emergency for the 16-year-old, as I recall, right?
And she's donated here. You know, she gives her allowance, right? Yeah. And donated. Check your Madeira Beach caregiver. Check your drive by vid for more
prizes.
Yeah, it was. So if anyone sees her or grandpa in the chat, you know what? I meant to reach out to them today, but I don't really have their email. I just have an at. You know, we just have an app, but we'll see what we can do. Okay.
Wishing them the best. So, so first of all, so fun to be in federal court. You know, I as I told Mark when I was interviewing him afterwards, and that interview will go up later tonight probably. I said,
Mark who, for those who don't know.
Sorry, Marc Randazza, the attorney who represents not just me and Tom, but I'm starting to lose track of how many, but 4 current cases against the state police, against Judge Cannone, and others, the DA, Morrissey, all relating to the buffer zone, violation of First Amendment rights, right to assemble, right to freedom of religion, freedom of speech, all of those things. So today, let me just back up and give the procedural aspects of where we are, because we were talking last night about the Doolin decision. This was on a state court level. Remember, Erica Walsh was arrested yesterday because she wore that sweatshirt, that horrible sweatshirt for Microdots. And I'm not suggesting they sell horrible sweatshirts. Just that was the reason she was arrested, because it said criminals control Norfolk County. No,
it's a Microdot sweatshirt.
It is.
It's like a basic freedom of expression. Right.
So they arrested her, and Marc Randazza, who is now her attorney, was right there within 5 feet, as he told the federal court today, when it happened. And so that's done. That's in the mix. It's a trespassing charge, which is crazy. Trespassing on public property. Anyway, so this is all boiling over. Tom gets arrested. We have the video of Tom doesn't get arrested. Sorry, he gets manhandled, and we have the video of him being manhandled from his point of view when that unfolded. And we'll get to that in just a second when I lay the groundwork for where we were and what was going on today. So remember, you got 2 things happening. You got state court things happening. You got federal court things happening. The bigger cases filed are in the federal court against the state officials, including the cops and Judge Cannone. The state court issues are things like addressing why you were prevented from doing something, in the street, in front of the courthouse, in the buffer zone. Mm-hmm. So Doolin comes down with a state decision saying that what happened to Tom, the accosting, and what happened to Grant, which was holding the sign. He had a sign holding it with the Bible verse on it, right? And that was it. Not attacking anybody, just the Bible verse. And on Friday of last week, somebody in the Superior Court level said, okay, that's okay for you to do that. And they made it sound like it's kind of a day-to-day evaluation, which became an issue in court today in federal court. Randazza, Mark, is saying to the court, look, even when they said it was okay for him to have this Bible verse, remember, after the fact, are you supposed to go and say, sir, can I wear this on my shirt today? Is that all right? You can't. That's bullshit. That's prior restraint. That's against the Constitution and the First Amendment. But they're making it sound like, well, we gave him a pass on that day, even though they had restricted him. They restricted him that day, but then after they addressed it, they said, oh, okay, you can do this Monday, meaning last Monday, this a few days ago, and we'll look at it day to day. Are you kidding me? That's just not what happens in the US of A. That's not the way it works. So this is a hearing to address that issue, this feeling that the cops can just decide what is or isn't an intention of somebody else to disrupt the process, to disrupt justice, to interfere with the participants. Remember, that's the nature of the order, is to prevent those things. Well, when you put the interpretation of that mens rea, and that was the big element that they added in the supplemental order. Ooh, we now have to prove there was intent to do it. Well, if any old cop like Hardman can decide on his own, that is intent to disrupt because you're standing there with the Bible verse, right? Or that is an intent to disrupt because you, Tom, are standing on the sidewalk as a journalist just recording people coming and going. You can't give that kind of power to the lackeys in the state police. You just can't do it.
And even Doolin's order, which I want to take back, our person of the week, when he didn't put Aiden in jail and revoke his jail, Aiden Carney, Dr. Turboy. I want to take that back and said, well, this is a real close issue. I mean, if he's 1 foot over here, he may be violative because he's on not on public. Proper. I mean, what are we supposed to go out and get landscapers to measure if your 1 foot is over? Hi, Will the Glare. Will, I need you to go see. I need you to go look at my appearance on Fox Nation with John DePietro and all. Please, I really need you to take a look at it.
We need the Will impression on that.
I need you, Will. I need you. Okay. And good afternoon to you too. And by the way, remember, somebody asked when our tomorrow's 6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, the premiere tomorrow.
So what is so then? Did that address that today?
Let me finish that order because there's still more. There's the two issues that Tom DeRozier and Grant were kind of after the fact said, oh, okay, you can do that sort of day to day. Well, who am I not talking about that was part of that order? Erica Walsh, the one wearing the sweatshirt that was truly arrested for trespassing. What did the court say about that? That's okay. She can be arrested. She's going to have to pursue a defense against a trespassing charge for wearing a sweatshirt that doesn't really affect anybody in this trial. I mean, globally, I guess, if you say criminals control Norfolk County, I guess you're indicting the judge and the cops, but come on. So that stands. That stands.
Wait. Say that again. She has to go pursue.
She's been arraigned, and there's going to be. Look at what's going to happen, though, and this is just the logic of what's now in place. She's going to have to go to a probable cause hearing, right? Well, all the judge in the probable cause hearing has to do is look at the order and say that under the terms of that order, yeah, there's probable cause because obviously you don't need much, right? Which is going to cue it up to have an actual trial on wearing a sweatshirt on the public sidewalk.
Excuse me, if I cursed.
Yes.
Which I don't.
Yes.
Unfucking believable.
Yeah. Okay. So that's where that stands. And so in part, Marc Randazza goes to federal court today to fix that, to basically have the federal court say, look, Judge C, no. You've extended way beyond any authority you have, outside the courtroom. Technically, and here's what's very interesting. If you look at the buffer zone, it encompasses the district court right there. So she's effectively issued an order that controls what judges do in district court. If they wanted to have a different rule, nope, she's got a buffer zone that absorbs your court, the district court. That's how crazy it is. So that's why federal court today, and that's the arguments that were being made. And there's some great arguments. And I love being in federal court because you know how it is. It's very civil. The building itself is nice. This is perched on the harbor overlooking, the Boston Harbor. Beautiful building in downtown Boston. Of course, the irony is, and Mark used this in part of his argument, said, here we are. This is Boston Harbor, where our freedoms of this kind were fought for. People fought and died, Boston Tea Party, Revolution, all of that. And here we are feet away, and we're fighting about whether somebody can use the sidewalk to express an opinion. I mean, it's an irony that just makes you sick. So
Yeah,
he
really,
goes,
really
he's
disgusting.
it really is. So he goes into his arguments. I'll just hit some of the high points from my really poorly written notes here. In the courthouse, a couple of reporters of some sort, a lot of youngsters like clerks and assistants. They're up in the corner, all very very happy to be there, and they're just taking it all in like sponges. And then Tom is there, and Grant is there, and a few other folks who are part of the support group. So he's talking about at one point, Mark's talking about the concern the judge has for, noise that might filter up or that something the jury might see. And he said, hey, how about they close the blinds? How about that?
How
How
about
about that?
that?
How about
Big
that
curtain that's-
as a fix? And nobody who's been up there has heard anything. And I'm going back to trial number one, that is going to truly impact the jury realistically, and they can't see anything because they come and go from the back door, right?
I have a question for you. Does the sweatshirt talk?
Oh, no, it doesn't. So you have to actually see that, right, to be affected by it. Close the blinds. That was one of the suggestions. And Mark went into this, being very careful not to ask for all or nothing, right? If you're going to ask for all or nothing, there's a chance you could lose. Or if you leave a suggested compromise up to the court, you could lose. Look what happened in the First Circuit. They sent it back to Judge C and said, okay, put something in there about mens rea, the mental element, and she comes up with this gobbledygook in this supplemental order when things actually got worse, right? So one of the arguments by the state, and I can't believe the guy had to embarrass himself by making this argument, but I get it. He's representing his client. It's his job, but not a job I would want to be standing up there saying we're okay by restricting people on the public sidewalks, what they wear, what they say. But he did. And one of the things he talked about was the limiting what it may be. He cites some case law. He cites USC 42 USC 1983, which is a broad, hugely broad set of statutes, suggesting that they can do this, that they can limit these things as they've done. And then he also said, oh, by the way, Grant can wear his sign. That was addressed. Mr. Drosha can video where he did. That was addressed. After the fact, I'm sorry, I'm not giving any benefit for fixing something so obvious after the fact, but that was kind of his position. And so Mark said at one point, you have to ask Judge, and I'll tell you about this judge in a second. Where does Judge C think she gets this power? Where is that power granted? Yes, she can control the environs of the courthouse, that property. But where she get the balls, he didn't say that, to extend that into the public, as I mentioned, even beyond to the district court, right? This judge, his last name is Juan, or I'm not exactly sure how to pronounce it. It's Joun. This judge, from what I hear earlier today, just put a restraining order on President Trump about the Department of Education plans that they're trying
That's
to.
the same judge. Said
Same judge. I mean, earlier in the day. So
he's dealing with. Wait a second. He's dealing with President Trump, and he's dealing with us. Oh, this is so cool.
Here's how I boiled it down to Mark, and Mark did invoke his name during his arguments to help engender his position. I don't think that's Mark's position, to be honest with you, but I thought he used it properly. But here, I told them as we were going down in the elevator, I said, well, yeah, you're talking about a judge who's done something now to prevent Trump, but won't do anything about Judge Quinone because she's much more frightening. That's why this judge hasn't done anything yet. We're not sure if he's going to or not. He took it under advisement, as they say. So alternatives were thrown out there, just to make sure.
Like what?
The big one, and this one he threw in at the very end. He said, look, and he cited the case that stands for a proposition that the court can do certain things. A specific law in that underlying case said 35 feet was too much. 35 feet. Remember, we're talking 200 and more. 35 is nothing.
Which is what we talked about in Center Street in New York, because that's about 35 feet from the sidewalk across from from the courthouse steps to the park, right? About 35 feet. Yeah.
So he said, if the court has to do something, then that little channel, front steps where they generally come up and leave, then make that the zone that can't be, crossed. That to me would be a huge win. I mean, the press gets in there, and I've been in there, but that's treated differently. They would not under this compromise suggested, the public would not be able to just kind of mass around there. especially
right.
coming and going. So
By the way,
he
thank you,
threw the
Linda. Thank you, Linda, for your note, your donation. Power corrupts, and absolute power corrupts absolutely. Trump rocks. I mean, people have
well,
different opinions, but it's just kind of funny that we were in the courtroom and the Trump case is the same with us. And we should note, can I just interrupt you a second while we go on? Because the head of the Civil Rights Division of the Department of Justice is one who founded the center that that's supplying or funding Marc Randazza. Everyone should note that. She's actually been tweeting tweet-xing, posting updates about this case.
Yep. So not to get political at all, but that was just a fact that I thought was curious. The same judge had just restrained, or is attempting to restrain, the president of the United States, and he's waffling on Judge C. Anyway, so Mark has some great language. He's one thing, and I mentioned this in the interview with him. I said he has this very valuable blend of knowing what he's talking about, always important, but he has a delivery that is much more regular guy, kind of down home, kind of not offensive, not in your face. He may be telling you you're nuts without using that phrase, So, but he does have some colorful language. He talked about how we're in the cradle of civilization here, as I referenced, Boston Tea Party. He said, but that cradle has been rocked. He talked about that this is a constitutional tragedy. He said the whole thing should be washed away, meaning, because the judge asked at one point, and you know how important it is, Linda, to listen to the court's questions, right? Because it gives you some
especially
insight.
Federal court.
Not only do you want to answer them, but it gives you some sense of where they're going, what they're thinking. And the judge said, well, if we talk about, because he constantly said, my job really is to look at this buffer zone to see if it's unconstitutionally overbroad, vague, right? The big picture. He said, so is it the zone that you're most interested in correcting, or the enforcement of the zone? Because we've talked so much about how Judge, he wishes he was a judge, Hartman, kind of implies he applies to this whatever his take is on your action at a given time under a certain set of circumstances. He's all powerful. And so the judge was giving Mark kind of an interesting choice to make. Right. My immediate gut reaction was, they're both important, Judge. I'm not trading. This is not let's make a deal. I'm not going for one versus the other. So that's,
well, if the zone is constitutional, then the enforcement is easy.
Well, of course.
That's the answer, right?
Yeah, because then you can create some very specific enforcement rules within the zone, which would be nice if they would even attempt that. They have not attempted to do that. So he reinforced, what I thought was the right argument, which is that no, they're critical, and you can't really separate one from the other. That's certainly a position I would have taken. I never would have caved in on that. Let's see if the opposition had anything worth mentioning. They talked about, they cited a couple of cases, and they loved, of course, the Doolin decision, and they used that. That's again the state decision. That's the one letting two of the issues go. DeRozier, Grant, but reinforcing the Erica Walsh bad sweatshirt issue.
That was the easiest. That was so easy.
I thought that was the easiest of them.
Yeah,
really.
It was so easy.
Yeah,
I don't get it. I just don't get it. Yeah.
Mainly because she was arrested. It was, Grant.
Right.
I suppose if Grant had said, "I'm not taking this off," he had the Bible verse on a board. Right. I'm not taking this off, and I'm not leaving. I can assume he would have been arrested too. But he left.
Well, Tom, didn't they just pick him up and move him? And
yeah, they basically grabbed him. It was Hardman. He's 6'4", and I'll just say Tom is not. And he would grab him and he pulled him across the street and kind of shoved him, and Tom was there in his sling. Which arm is it? I think it's his left arm. Yeah, he's in his sling. He'll be back on meds as soon as he gets home. He was hesitant to take the meds and then go to court. Let me see a couple more notes here on the final on his rebuttal. And one of the arguments by the state was, look, Judge, this is on a temporary restraining order. That's what we're here about. This is not technically on the merits, even though the merits were being talked about tremendously. And in fact, Mark at one point said, Mr. DeRozier is here, and if it'll help the court, I'm sure he can come up here. He can testify. This really isn't the setting for that, and I get that. But I guarantee you, Tom's sphincter tightened dramatically when he thought he might be heading to the witness stand in the federal court. That did not happen. But the state was saying that this is beyond the court's power to enjoin the judge. The federal court can't enjoin this judge. Of course, he just tried to enjoin the president of the U.S. But hey, procedurally, there's not a mechanism for the federal judge to enjoin the state judge. And Mark's rebuttal to that was, so what? She can make, don't enjoin her. We're not suggesting that. She can make whatever order she wants. You're addressing the order, the result of what she's done. Not, you can't, she can make whatever order she wants, and then it's going to be evaluated on an order by order basis. So yeah, judge, don't worry about Judge C. We're dealing with the order. And so it was important to point that out. Let's see.
What did Judge June say about any of that? Did any more comments from him? Because yeah, you do. You know, federal judges are a lot more. Even when I've argued in the circuit courts, you get a feeling for them a lot more than you do. State court judges, they kind of like all over the place. They don't want to give things away. But federal court judges, they want to get to the heart of the matter. They don't have time for bullshit.
Yeah, and I think they're much more interactive for that reason, right? And if you're smart in any court, but especially in federal court, the last thing you want to do is regurgitate the paperwork that you've submitted. And there were some voluminous briefs in this case, and I'm sure he read those beforehand and wanted to just, you make the points you want to make. You don't just go over and over. And then you say, of course, if the court has additional questions, I'll be happy to answer those, which is sort of how it went. I mean, for the broad issues that were being discussed, it was 40 minutes maybe total. And that's the other thing. It's not like you go into federal court and it's a cattle call, like it is in state court. You're there, the parties are there, whatever few supporters or assistants, they're there, and that's it.
I love federal court. Trial by appointment. I love federal court.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, it's so nice. Anyway, his final request of the court was to rescue liberty.
Wow, he does have a way with words. I mean, there was one statement he put in his brief that really was a way with words. But yeah, what I'm concerned about is that they're going to say, well, you've got to appeal this through the, you got to go up through, do all your remedies by the state, right? That's did that come up at all?
Well, there was
exhaust your remedies, I guess it's called, right?
That was the attempt by the state, and I guess it's the state, or is it a federal attorney? I'm not sure where. I guess he's a federal attorney because it's in federal court. Nobody there. There was actually, let me correct myself. He was for the state, and there was a federal attorney there, right? Made no comment, was just there to monitor, was not weighing in on the issue, which to me is a little bit telling, right? They don't want to get there.
So the state hired a federal attorney. Is that what it is? Somebody.
I think it was from the AG. Office.
Oh, from the AG. Okay, for AG's office. For the state police. Okay, I got it. You're right.
Because so I think they're just monitoring, and they were taking no stand.
And they let the Norfolk County attorney argue. Basically, is that what it was?
That's what it looked like to me. And in fact, I asked Mark. I said, I just want to get his name. I don't know him. I don't know if Mark knew his name either, but he had gone up against him. Probably in this case. Then there was another guy that was interviewed. Tom actually did the interview. Tom was recording it, but I ended up doing the interview. It was kind of weird. So I'm going to see if I can borrow that from Tom when we get it. It's from John Matus. He's an attorney.
Oh, he's been on our website. He actually is the one who posted when I gave you yesterday. We didn't have the order yet that came down on the 3. Right. He posted on his website, and he's actually follows us and back and forth. And he reposted some of our stuff. I posted some of his stuff. I didn't realize he was so active in this.
He was there. He made a brief argument, sort of synthesizing what had been said by Mark. Let's see.
I was going to suggest we had it on. I was going to suggest we had him on the we have him on the show because I didn't even know he was involved in the case. I just saw that he knew what he was talking about, and we'd like to bring you, as you know, we know people that know what they're talking about. Speaking about people that know what they're talking about, this is my sister's back in the chat. Hey, Joe. Soon they will be handing out uniforms for us to wear, and we could all look like North Koreans or Russians or whatever. Whatever person's is gonna do our liberties. And Will, you have to go. While Michael's looking for that, you have to go watch this. You and Aiden may want to take apart what I did today. I don't know. You say you let me know. You let me know.
So this was John Matus, and he made a couple of comments, but he focused on this problem that if the trespassing case, Erica Walsh's case, goes to trial or has a prelim, that it's so easy to get the probable cause you need to push it to trial. That was kind of his focus. He came up to me as soon as we finished. He said, "I watched your videos." And then he said that the one I did yesterday where I was talking to the supporters, and it was they're in the buffer zone now, and that was okay, but they weren't wearing any, Karen Read or supporter accoutrement. And, just, it's like every day it changes.
Right.
So he took that and he reposted that.
Okay.
So we can get him on anytime. He'll come on anytime.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting. It's funny. I didn't even realize he was involved. It was just, when you're scrolling down and you see somebody posting something and they look like they're smart, I like to follow them,
Yeah, he represents, among other things, a national journalism group, and then a couple of others that are, I don't know, interested in the First Amendment. So he'd be a good guy to have on. So
interested in being an American, that kind of thing.
just somebody who doesn't want to live in Nazi Germany. So so that was it. And the judge said, quote, he would rule as quickly as I can. So they talked about pushing this to next week, because I told Mark, I said, this looks, this could be pocket veto stuff.
Right.
The trial, the case in chief of the prosecution is almost done. If you push this out a couple of weeks or so, maybe the defense case is done. And, every day that it's not remedied is a problem. And remember, this is for a restraining order, so you have to prove permanent damage to whoever is looking for the order, and likelihood of success on the merits. It's a high burden, right? But you got to address those things. So I think that Jason was there and met him, and I think Dina told me that we're gonna have to have Jason on. And Jason, I'm telling you right now, you can wear anything you want, anything, signs, whatever you want to wear.
You can wear anything you want, but I do, out of respect for me, don't like the C word on your stuff. And I know Will uses it, and I will defend your right to say anything. But as I was listening to Proctor earlier today, I was like, just as out of respect for me, but if you feel a need to. So
I don't see Jason spouting that. So
okay.
I don't see that. A pleasure to meet you as well, Jason. After have read all of your, when you're the first person named in any action, and in Tom, in my case, Tom is named first. That name becomes synonymous with the case, and obviously, Jason has been much more active than some of the other plaintiffs in his case. So was that a Tom note I just saw?
Yeah, he's having surgery tomorrow. He's going to let us know.
Oh my gosh!
Okay.
I know they said it was a rotator cuff issue, is what it sounded like.
Yeah.
So anyway.
So did the court understand that we're approaching towards the end of the trial pretty soon?
I think the court's well aware, and as I suggested to Mark, this judge has probably read everything, and he probably came to the hearing today with some predisposition about where it was going to go. Maybe he wanted arguments to help fine tune, but I would be shocked. I don't think maybe we'll get a decision tomorrow. Who knows? Long weekend, holiday weekend, but maybe Tuesday, if not tomorrow. I get the sense the judge is well aware of what's happening, knows the importance of the timeliness of making a decision. Now we'll see if that happens. So the interview that he did afterwards with Mark, and then peripherally with Tom and Jason it's all in there. It was quite a long.
That's funny. I watched Tom driving home, so I missed that portion of it.
I don't know what he was running, because he was doing some stuff as well, and I don't know if his was live or being recorded. But there was an interesting moment in the court. You look for this. We go down, and again, it's federal court. You got to turn your phone in the lobby.
Right.
So you're not taking.
I told people, but explain that.
I mean, there's a big old desk there with two guys that's their job basically, is to rip you off your electronics. When I picked mine up, I said, "Can you just upgrade me? Give me one that's a little better than mine. I need a new phone. I dropped mine." Anyway, so those are all out of your hands, and they're you go up from there. You go through the normal metal detectors too, but you ain't going with any electronics unless you're press, and I didn't go through that process. So.
Well, you have to be in New York City. You have to cover 12 trials before you can apply for the press pass that gives you the ability to bring your electronics in. So I don't know, because all the districts are different.
That's what I wondered. I didn't know if that's a reciprocity issue, if it's a federal rule. No idea. But I knew this was an in and out drive-by, so I wasn't too concerned about it. So and the weather was so brutal. Whew, so brutal. So we come down, and I'm thinking, well, can we do this interview just like right out front? There's an overhang, even though the weather's bad. And I asked the phone police. I said, can we? And there's like an inner chamber, because it's Boston, cold weather, just like in New York. You've got that chamber, doors, and then a second set of doors to keep bad weather out. Can we do it in there? Do we have to go outside? He said, you can do it in the lobby. I said, oh, great. There's a little better ambiance. It's got good ambiance.
That's amazing that they let you do it now.
Maybe so. Here's what happened. So we see that we have the big seal behind. I shoot it this way, so the big seal is behind it. My nose is sticking into the frame, but I tried to avoid that. Anyway, there's a big seal of whatever it says, Federal District Court, blah blah blah. We're halfway through the interview, just talking and everything, and two of the guys who were in the security line, the metal detector line, start sauntering over, and I said, oh, this will be interesting, because I asked, because I thought it would be outside or nothing. So here come the burly guys. I think, hey, you're not going to be able to record it. I said, I just talked to this guy right here, and he said it was fine. Now I'm going to get a feel for who's the boss, right?
Right.
And he said, oh, okay, well, all right then, and he wandered away.
Oh, so, that's interesting. That's almost like Tom saying, but they told me I could stay here yesterday.
In fact, I turned to Tom and I said, that's what happened to you. They told you one day you can do it here, and the next day they rip your arms off, taking you out of the street. So anyway, so that was amusing. The guys taking the phones have the power. That's what I learned.
Wow. So Noodles Mama, how can Erica get a trespassing charge on a public sidewalk? Michael?
That's such a good question. They've twisted the law to suggest that if it's an area they've designated as quasi-public, I guess, pseudo-public, then they can do whatever the hell they want. Yeah, I mean, there's no logical answer for it. There is no logical answer.
Wow. All right, so where's Mark? Mark left. Mark came to town for this, and
he was. Last I heard, he was taking his intern and somebody else to have a steak dinner.
Okay.
The invitation was not extended, or I'd be at a table having a steak right now instead of in my mobile studio.
We should know you've been up in this terrible weather, northeaster. You said you were going up. You went up. You're there. You're coming back in northeaster, and you have our mobile studio in your
That's
car.
right. It was such an important. It was so important to go to that hearing. I think. Yes, I'm glad I did. I'm glad I made the effort. I'm glad I saw it play out. Glad I could talk to the guys afterwards, and then we'll share that as soon as I get a chance. So it was worth it.
So do we have the interview with Mark is not ready to be uploaded?
No, it's not. But it will be soon enough. That's all I can say. I can't give you a time. Let's do this though, since I have it handy and I pulled it up. For those who haven't seen what I call the Tom assault video, this is from his perspective, but still.
Okay. I was told I can't go on that side of the street, so. You told me here.
Get back.
Back where?
Get back across the street.
All right, Ben.
I'm not telling you again.
You told me that corner.
You're being out of digitally recorded.
Dude,
back across
you
the
don't
street.
need to touch me. I can walk on my own 2 feet.
Go.
You told me there.
Yeah, go ahead. File a complaint inside. The judge is in there.
I would like to. Can I?
Good.
Can I file a complaint? Can I file a complaint, sir?
Go ahead.
I can't go across the street without your permission. You just carried me across the street. The fuck did I do with that?
What the fuck, man?
Dude, he just fucking picked me up and carried me across the street. Wow. You gotta see my arms. Where's fucking Randazza? Wow. You saw that, right, Mike?
Yeah, dude.
And you heard what he said about being on that sidewalk Friday when I was here. Yes? You saw that, right?
They did.
Wow.
What do you push you?
Carried me. My arms all fucking torn apart now.
Yeah, so now he's getting some surgery. Here's the part that's so consistent in these events that I've seen. You'll see a number of officers standing around, right? See, kind of standing. And then who comes charging?
Back where?
Get back across the street. I'm not telling you
That's
again.
hard.
You told me that.
He no matter what the scenario, he's the guy that is at the forefront of enforcement. So
yeah. So I'm glad that Jason, who's a plaintiff, is in our chat. Tom is in our chat. Everyone wants to see the video, and I just wanted today of by the way, the other video of my appearance. I just want to say that Paul Morrow was a terrific host and a great discussion. I mean, you have to have these discussions as if we're jurors, okay, in a room. So let me just say that because you're all asking about that still. But I want to go back to this. I want to go back to you, Michael. I want to go back to this. How does this affect your case? And for those who don't know what your case is.
Yeah, that's a good question, because I have not been manhandled and removed from the area. What we believe happened, and Hardman did approach me, for those who may not remember this. This was April 1st is when we had the whole first kerfuffle over, that was during jury selection. I was 5 times back and forth across the sidewalk. I don't want to see you do it again. Mr. Delgado gets his thing stripped off of him. And that morning, Tom was first told, get the hell out of here. Okay, so that was the basis for our lawsuit. And this was against the troopers primarily and Hardman. After that, it had to be maybe 2 weeks later. I was there right at the foot of the stairs across the street at the Registry of Deeds. I'm recording. Hardman comes over and I said, look, and I have my press credentials hanging around my neck. He said, I'm not going to have that argument. Chief Judge.
Oh, we lost you. We lost you. You got to repeat it. We lost you.
Okay, hold on.
Yeah, we lost you.
Let me know when I'm back.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Yeah, hold on 1 second. Yeah. And the mobile studio in bad weather and all. But
It's
hold
brutal.
on a second. Yeah. So start again because we lost you when you said Hardman
Yeah.
comes over.
The rain just started harder. So let me get this out as quickly as I can. Hardman comes over. He says, I'm not going to have that argument. He said, well, if those are real credentials, you'll talk to the Chief Rose at the courthouse. I said, what, you think I made these on my computer at home? I mean, so we go over there. I have the conversation with Chief Rose. He calls the credentials department in Boston. They say, we'll look into it, and they do shit. But that was my one interaction with Hardman. Since then, every time I've come and gone, I make a point of saying, gentlemen, how are you? And the cops are very deferential to me. So I think at some point there was a conversation that this guy must be legit. Am I more legit than Tom? No. But because I've got things hanging around my neck and other jurisdictions have acknowledged my journalistic status, then I guess they're deferring to that. So I've had no problems. That may, if I were on the other side, I would argue my case is moot at this point. Doesn't mean what happened that day was right. Doesn't mean I wasn't wronged on that day. But going forward, what's the remedy for me? It seems that other than suggesting they won't give me a media credential to get in the courtroom, and that's retaliatory, you could make that argument. I'm certainly not as harmed as some of the others have been.
Yeah, that's true. But they haven't made that. Your case is kind of in limbo, and I guess that would be the argument coming forward that you're not muted, so you're moot. Okay,
the
caregiver again.
Let me mention this: the body cam footage, because Madera Beach caregiver. Thank you for the donation, of course, and again, in the federal court. The state, I'm calling it the state. I'm not sure. I'm really unsure of his role, but he's the opposition to the TRO. He said, we can make available to the court the body camera footage of the incident with Tom.
Yeah, that's so public.
Where's the FOIA request? We need to get a FOIA request out there to get. They've got body cameras now. So these guys, Stadies,
Hank.
are these Stadies are. What was that?
I don't know.
These Stadies have body cameras. So. Tom's incident, even my little incident where he took me across the street with my what he thought were fake credentials. That stuff's out there. So
yeah. So I mean, the reason now they can afford body cams. Where's the asshole's body cam? What the F? Yeah. Yeah. So it just right, exactly. I mean, those are FOIA, and all. So it really is. This is really a big issue. What people don't realize, this is a huge issue. You're not going to get this kind of First Amendment head-on issue in many cases, but I am shocked. I was shocked at Doolin with Erica's case. Just shocked.
Yeah. And this is lawmaking type case right here. And that's how law is created. You appeal something, it gets written up as a decision, and then that decision becomes controlling or persuasive in some other jurisdiction. I mean, because in this case, you're talking about the limits of a court to suppress free speech. That's huge. Right. So let me get out of here before I float away or the signal just goes.
Okay, so let's do a couple things just before you really go, because I want everyone to before we go to just the next little minute or so, share, subscribe, okay, notify. And remember, we're going to be on at 6 o'clock tomorrow night. But I just want to let you know, we want to do some other things. We're going to be covering some Diddy. I already talked to one of the reporters is in the room. She's going to come on one night next week because there's a lot happening with Diddy. And what piqued my interest today is apparently he may have been charged with killing a dog, Kid Cudi's dog, not just a firebombing of the car. I mean, since we seem to have dogs, so we want to get a handle on that and get you all involved on that. And then also, all of you don't know that, I have done it with my husband a couple of times. I've assisted on some exhumations that I've been hired on as a lawyer. And Casey Sherman, who is going to be on with us, we're going to try to get him soon, whether it be one night next week or to comment on this. He's on his book tour with Blood in the Water, which is at the top of the New York Times bestseller list. And it's whether or not did Nathan Carmen really kill his wealthy grandfather and mother. And also he's really interesting because the person that we were exhuming was his aunt, who was the last alleged victim of the Boston Strangler. So I met Casey and then we kind of reconnected. And so we may have him on to chat too, because look, you're all interested in crime. So why not, right? Let us know what your thoughts about that. And of course, we want to know what's happened to our 16-year-old viewer. So if anyone sees Grandpa, in any other chat, please let us know. So I just wanted to put
there, partner.
And by the way, one more thing. Guess who was the person of the year for Norfolk County? Norfolk County Bar Association. Yes.
Well, I would imagine Judge C would be a front runner for that.
Yep.
And she's honored last night at some sort of event, right?
Right. The Bar Association Person of the Year award, I think. And of course, you had by the way, Aperture has taken down 2 credentials also out of the CV of Shannon Burgess. The one that he said he could hack in at the hacker credential or whatever, and then some other credential that he said he was credentialed in. And they were the big sponsors for the Massachusetts Bar Association last week. So it's all kind of incestuous.
Mark said, can we get a picture of that? Because the invitation I saw through our WhatsApp, I think Dizzy might have gotten it, or Missy. He said, can we get that? Blow that up. Somebody hold that, stand there at the courthouse. Is that improper? Can you, it just says she's person of the year. Can I not stand here with that? So look for that. Look for that at a courthouse near you soon. So.
All right. Short night tonight. You got to get back on the road. Still get home. It's almost 8 o'clock. Before before you get reined under and the car gets thrown away,
So coming up soon will be the interview post hearing today from the federal court, and then tomorrow a premiere in which we delve into some of the Proctor factor, because I think it's going to happen. Still unofficial, but we thought it was a good idea to kind of remind ourselves of how horrible this guy is. Yeah, we had that discussion today. I was the only one who said I think they're going to call him. I've changed my tune on that. I think listening to the testimony, they've got to call him. But everyone else said no way it was going to happen. So we'll see. Okay. All righty then. Well, everybody have a great Memorial weekend. Until next time, I'm Michael Bryant. Try to do the right thing. I'm Linda Kenny Bodden. Stay with Justice Served TV. Like, subscribe, share. We'll see you soon. It's